pressure off the edge, and it's intercepted. D'Angelo Pond, roll out the big red carpet, touchdown Indiana.
It's time for the big red carpet. Here's your host, Rhett Lewis.
Hey, what's up, friends? Welcome back to another edition of the Big Red Carpet. I am Rhett Lewis. Great to be here with you as part of the Back Home Network as business as usual continues here for the Indiana Hoosiers. Now 9-0 on the season after a 55-10 dominating effort over the Maryland Terrapins on the road in College Park, Maryland. The largest road win for your Hoosiers since 1988 and the most points scored in a road game since 2001, back when I was a true freshman in Bloomington. So it's been a minute, but it just feels, again, like normal. It feels like this has just simply become the expectation. And that is not to say that anyone is bored with it, because dominance is fun. And this was fun to watch for sure. Got to go back on my flight home from the Minnesota-Michigan State game, which I was at for Big Ten Network, which was fun. It was an overtime game. Minnesota got the dub in OT, but got to watch all the tape, offense, defense, and really take a look at this thing. Do want to get into that here. Well, obviously, we'll get into the injuries to a couple of key players, obviously, that Indiana was able to kind of persevere without in this game. So that was great to see. And then we will talk a little bit about what Coach Curt Cignetti said. We'll get into the offense-defense breakdown, talk a bit about the opponent, Penn State. Really unique situation here for Penn State. We'll get into that as well. And then we'll see where we're at. So excited to do this with you guys again. And I think, again, just to put some context to where this Hoosiers team is heading, right? College football playoffs coming up on Tuesday with the first rankings that will be revealed. And Indiana will either be number one or number two. Obviously, number two in all the polls right now. But that's, at this point, it doesn't matter, right? Because as long as Indiana continues to take care of business, they're going to find themselves in the conference championship in Indianapolis. And if Ohio State kind of continues their course, that's who Indiana will meet there. And then both teams will be headed to the CFP regardless of the outcome. It'll then just be a matter of, does the loser end up still getting a bye? Because obviously the winner would. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But this first glimpse of the rankings might give us a better sense of how the committee views the Big Ten as a whole, which will be something to watch for teams like USC, for Washington, for Illinois, for Iowa. I think especially those games will be really important. These rankings will be really important just to kind of see baseline where they are. But back to Indiana here, just continuing to go through some of the big moments in the big headlines from this game over this win over Maryland. Fifth win by 40 points this season. Fifth win by 40 points this season. 9-0 for the second time in school history. Obviously last year was the first time. The offense continues to dominate however it needs to, which I think is a really important distinction for this team, right? You've got a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback who's thrown 25 touchdown passes right now, but you can also run the ball for 367 yards. 367 yards and 4 touchdowns. 3 different players go for over 80 yards. 4 get into the end zone. 5th game with 300-plus rushing yards this season, which is another school record. In fact, we should probably just start a new record book, right, that just has all of the Curt Cignetti records in it, because they are getting broken and reset at a record pace, truly. Think about the rushing yards disparity in this game. 367 to 37 rushing yards for Maryland. 8th straight game holding opponents under 100 yards on the ground. 8th straight game holding opponents under 100 yards on the ground. That is dominance on defense. That's a program record as well. Hoosiers 3rd nationally in scoring defense at just over 10 points a game, and 7th in total defense. But they do lead the nation in point differential. And it will be interesting to see how the committee, when we get to Tuesday, views that point differential. They love wins more than anything. And Indiana has not just been winning, they've been dominant. They're the first Big Ten team to win 3 conference games by 45 or more points in a season since Ohio State did it 4 years ago, back in 2021, and just the 5th team ever to do so. The point differential is 35.7 points per game. How many teams in this country don't even average 35 a game? That's the average that Indiana is beating teams by. That's 5.4 more points per game in terms of score differential than the next closest team. Again, just kind of checking off little resume items for the committee as we go forward. Although I don't think this year we're going to need much of that help from those types of numbers based off the dominance, the record, the wins, and everything that Indiana has done. The 5 takeaways on defense, just incredible. Overwhelming this Maryland offense for sure. Returned the fumble. Obviously, Devin Boykin, we'll get into that. Had the interception, had another fumble recovery. Byron Baldwin, get into that as well. Just an incredible dominant effort. Again, for a team to have a legitimate bona fide Heisman Trophy candidate, yet to still run the ball almost 60% of the time, which is the lead. It's the highest run percentage of any team in the Big Ten. Yet they also have a Heisman Trophy candidate. Let that sink in a little bit. Okay, so those are just some of the stat superlatives there following this Maryland win. Let's get into the injuries. Obviously, Aiden Fisher did not play in this game. Elijah Sarratt played very minimally in this game before heading out as a precautionary measure, as Curt Cignetti continues to say with him. Sounds like there was something bothering him going into the game, and then maybe a little something else that popped up in the game. They want to make sure none of that turns into something bigger, and so they held him out for the remainder of the game, and then we'll see where that goes as we go forward into this next week against Penn State. But Drew Evans was out against Maryland, will be out against Penn State, and unclear as to when he returns. Zen Michalski jumps in at left guard. Everything else stays the same along the offensive line, and I'll get into that for you guys a little bit as well. But it sounds like Aiden Fisher, we thought there was real positivity towards him playing last week, but obviously towards the end, when they get to Maryland, just didn't seem like that was the best course of action for him. But Curt Cignetti says it seems pretty optimistic that he will be back for the Hoosiers against Penn State, which will be huge considering the offensive line that Penn State has and the rushing attack, which we'll get into in just a little bit as well. So quick thoughts there on the injuries. All right, let's kind of talk about complementary football for a moment, because the offense obviously started slow. Fernando throws the pick on the first possession. And to me, that almost looked like a game plan type of pick. Like Maryland said, you know what, in this situation, in this down and distance, if I'm playing off coverage, we're going to see one of these out routes, and the corner just sits on it. He barely even moves. And then, he's reading Fernando's eyes the whole time. He drives on the football, basically beats, I think it was Sarratt. Yeah, beats Sarratt to the catch point. And he was just kind of flat. The corner on the other side was flat-footed as well. They were not worried about that ball going over their heads at that particular time, which made me think like there was something that they saw that maybe led them to believe that this was where they needed to be and the way that they wanted their corners to play there. But that was something Mike Shanahan, Chandler Whitmer, Curt Cignetti, and Fernando Mendoza all file away, and we'll get back to it here in just a second, right? Flat-footed corners that aren't necessarily respecting the deep shot and want to jump shorter routes, filed away. Okay. So the interception, and then defense comes out, right? Defense comes out, short field, their first play of the game, they're at the minus 12, right? Maryland's got an immediate scoring opportunity here. Bryant Haines, who also coaches the linebackers, right, calling the defense, loves that 3 linebacker package. And a little tough to do that when you're without your star linebacker, Aiden Fisher. So obviously Isaiah Jones, Elijah Hardy. And then still on the very first play from scrimmage for this defense, they go out in the 3 linebacker package, and it's Kaiden Turner who lines up, to me looked like the Mike linebacker, and he makes the first tackle of the game. First tackle of the game is a guy who has barely played on defense this year and steps into a big spot, back against the wall, makes that tackle. They hold Maryland to a field goal, and that's a win. That's a win in that situation when the offense turns it over deep in their own end, and Maryland's right there, knocking on the door. You keep them out of the end zone, and it's, an unsung hero, a guy who has barely played this year, stepping up, next man up, right? Kaiden Turner stepping in for Aiden Fisher in that 3 linebacker grouping, and along with Hardy, who was a big part of that first tackle. He filled his gap, his area. Turner's able to go make the play. Thought that was really cool to see. And then let's see, we will look. Okay, so the reason they were able to force the field goal, 3rd down on that first drive, you can kind of tell here that Malik is looking to run. So first he tries right, and because of they understand that this kid can move, right? He is a dual threat type of quarterback, but they are responsible in the way that they rush, right? And not over aggressive, right? Overrunning the quarterback, giving him rush lanes to jump out. Stephen Daley kind of blocks the opportunity for the quarterback to escape off the right side. He then goes left, and then Mario Blandino, who's kind of getting double teamed right now, shifts off to the right, and then essentially closes down that opportunity to escape to the quarterback's left. He then retreats, and you've got pursuit closing in on him. He makes a bad throw, field goal opportunity. So again, complementary football. Offense doesn't get it done on the first drive. Defense has their back. Same thing goes, as you go forward here. Defense allows a touchdown. Offense comes right back in the second half and essentially just shuts the door, answers it immediately with a touchdown. So all that stuff is kind of just goes hand in hand. While we're on the offensive side, let's get back there. Second drive. Again, remember the file away thing we're talking about on the first interception from Fernando? File this away too, because on the second drive, they called a read option. The end, which is the read player for Fernando Mendoza, as to whether he's going to let the running back take it or whether Fernando's going to pull it and run. So that end really crashes down. Fernando still gives it to Hemby. He gets stopped for minimal gain, might even have been a no gain or a loss, but again, filed away. That end crashes down again. You're going to pull it, right? Okay. On that second drive, you saw a couple of, the offensive line was a little bit out of sorts. And again, without Drew Evans at left guard, Zen Michalski comes in, who's played, a fair amount so far this season. Remember, it was in for the first half. I forget which game it was now, but for Khalil Benson. Michael Kadick was out on social media saying that kind of play where it looked like, Michalski just works upfield and allows 2 free rushers into Fernando's face on a 3rd down play. I think it was in that second drive. That was not necessary. That was a call, right? That sent Michalski working that way, not just a missed assignment. So they ultimately got it figured out. Zen did get beat on, I think it was a 2nd down rush on that play. Guy beats him inside almost immediately, but I thought he really settled in and played a really nice game, again, in a tough spot, subbing in for Drew Evans. But I thought he kind of warmed up as the game went on and played some better football. So that was really good to see. And again, that depth is so crucial. You guys remember, we talked about this last year. You started getting deeper and deeper into that depth chart at guard. And it felt like that kind of hurt you against Notre Dame and Ohio State down the stretch. Okay. 3rd drive, man, this was awesome. Fernando Mendoza to Omar Cooper. It's kind of like he's running from the slot, this kind of just middle hook type play. Awareness, chemistry, execution. Fernando knows exactly where Omar's going to go, and he knows the window in which he has to get the ball there, times it perfectly, gets it to a place where Omar can then break a tackle and go, which was fantastic. All right, remember that second drive, right? We were just talking about it, the read option, the end crashed. How about the 3rd drive? Better believe Mendoza filed it away because he runs they call another read option. Again, that end crashes down and boom, Fernando this time he pulls it and runs it. Explosive run, goes for a 1st down with Mendoza's legs, and that mobility has become a real weapon. Obviously, you saw it on the QB draw where he's just patting Pat Coogan on the back as he goes into the end zone. Another one here from Omar Cooper. I mean, I think he's earned the title, the Yak God. Omar Cooper will not go down on the first tackler. Could have gone out of bounds on a 7-yard gain. He says, nah, you know what? He slaps a corner, and the corner just flies off the screen about 5 yards out of bounds, pushes forward for another 5 yards upfield, and gets a first down. He's a physical and elusive yards after catch god. Good for you, Omar Cooper. And that's going to be a big plus as he considers the jump to the NFL at some point. I thought there was a great game plan and play call from Mike Shanahan, anticipating man coverage in the red area here to a 4-wide set. So then you motion the back, which pulls the only linebacker out of the middle of the field, right? So the middle is wide open. And sure enough, the QB draw, bang, that play I was talking about. Pat Coogan on the back. Fernando runs in untouched. Easiest touchdown of the season. Great game plan, great anticipation, great play call. Mike Shanahan and the offensive staff. Thought the tone was set there, right? Everything went wrong in the first 2 drives. Interception, punted away, defense holds to 3 points. Offense says enough. It's time to assert dominance, and they do. And to me, the shell of the turtle was cracking at that point because the game had gone Maryland's way. They get the early turnover. They get some early points, but Indiana weathers the storm and now punches back. And it felt like the route was on. Mentioned Zen really started to bounce back. He had a big chip and go on a QB draw. A big block by Kaelon Black to jump started against the middle linebacker. And then it was just, the run game was insane. I hope you guys have gone in and checked out some of my social media channels there on Threads, on Instagram, and on X. Just Kaelon Black, I mean, he was making Maryland Terrapin defenders look like just like speed bumps. And you know what? I don't even think you can call it a speed bump because he didn't break stride. It was just like shoulder down, speed kept up the whole time. Go check that play out at Rhett NFL, Rhett with an H there on social media to go see that. That was one of my favorite plays of the game because it was blocked up perfectly as well. Hat tip to everybody in on that play. So look, the offense then with Roman Hemby, with Kaelon, and with Kobe Martin. I'm telling you, the future is bright, by the way, right? With Kobe, over 80 yards rushing for the 3 of them, which was just fantastic to see and just dominant, right? You just lean on them and lean on them and lean on them. 367 yards. So this I thought was pretty cool, right? We go into the second half. I have a game responsibility for Big Ten Network. It's a good game. Michigan State and Minnesota. We had a longer TV timeout. So it was like 3.5 minutes. So for the first time, like I'm going to go check my phone. And I check it. Okay. Put it down. We're getting back. I check it again, like 2 minutes later. And there's been like 3 touchdowns scored. 9:43 mark of the third quarter. Kaelon Black scores his long touchdown run. 8:41 of the third quarter, Boykin forces and recovers the fumble, returns it for a touchdown. 7:37 on the clock. Roman Hemby, after the Byron Baldwin forced fumble and fumble recovery, scores against his former team. And within a span of 2 minutes of game clock, Indiana has scored 3 touchdowns. Like that is what you call shell-shocking a Terrapin. That was just an absolute gut punch, right? Game's over at that point. There's no coming back from that. So that was just a phenomenal, again, complementary football, right? Defense gives you the ball. Offense takes advantage. Defense scores a touchdown. Offense comes out. Defense comes back again and forces another turnover, right? That's executing momentum. And then the offense with Roman Hemby takes advantage of that. So that was just an incredible display of complementary football, takeaways, of being around the football, making plays on the football, and then making it count. A couple of plays on defense to go through. Mentioned the Kaiden Turner first tackle, and then obviously you go to the third drive. Kaiden Turner, he kind of reacts on a run fake, right? He pushes up to come up and stop the run. It's not a run, it's a play action. He then recovers, gets back, turns around, and gets his head around and right in the passing lane for the interception. So this kid, 3 drives, right? And he comes in, makes the first tackle of the game, and then gets the first takeaway of the game with the interception, which was huge. He then gets hurt, and we don't see him for the rest of the game. And then on the next play, the first play of the next drive, which is the 4th possession for Maryland, Utzinger comes in and takes over Kaiden Turner's role. He has a first play fill in the hole for a tackle for loss or no gain. So 2 different linebackers, again, just to just to kind of go back to the development piece, right? To the teaching piece that Curt Cignetti talked about with Bryant Haines. You got two guys subbing in and playing meaningful snaps on defense really for the first time. And they both make huge plays on their first plays in the game. That's big time. And then Lou Moore, another play I sent out on social media. That play on that fourth drive, right? So they had back-to-back turnovers, right? In that third and fourth drive of the game in the first half. As good a play as you'll see a deep safety make. As good a play as you'll see a deep safety make. Lou Moore closes space as the deep safety, climbs the ladder, and outcompetes the receiver to make an interception. Lou Moore is having a heck of a season, and he continues to get better and better and better. That's an NFL player right there. It was good to see Byron Baldwin get in, right, and get some meaningful playing time here. You know, he just started practicing a couple of weeks ago after the injury in camp. He was kind of working with the starting group during training camp. And then, you know, this safety group has kind of gotten better after, you know, receiving some criticism and had some negative plays early in the year, but they've really bounced back. Farrell, Moore, Boykin is at his two best games as a Hoosier last 2 weeks, right? And then now Byron Baldwin's coming on. Now you're building depth, right? Now you're building rotation. You'll be able to keep guys fresh. He has a bat out of hell blitz, just misses the tackle, but he holds up the quarterback enough, and he tries to escape the pocket. Elijah Hardy closes down with a purpose and makes a nice tackle. So didn't make the tackle there, but caused enough havoc and disruption to get it done for somebody else. Then, of course, he has the forced fumble and the fumble recovery later on in the game. So, I mean, there's just so much good stuff from this game on both sides of the ball, on special teams as well. Niko had some big kicks in this game and just kind of continues to be a sure thing in the field goal game, which was huge. So all in all, just dominance everywhere you look. Okay, let's talk about Penn State here briefly. This is crazy. Penn State has lost 27 of its last 28 games against AP-ranked top 5 teams. Obviously, Indiana coming in at number 2. They are allowing 31 points per game in Big Ten play. That is 15th in the conference for a defense expected to dominate at the start of the season. Now, here's the weird part. Obviously, James Franklin gets fired after the loss to Northwestern, right? So they lose to Oregon. They then lose to UCLA. They then lose at home to Northwestern. Then they bring Terry Smith in to run the team after parting ways with James Franklin. They still have not won a game. They have not won a conference game. They are still dangerous. Let me say that. And again, Curt Cignetti, genius with the messaging. He said as much today in the news conference, right? Let it all be known publicly. He's probably said the same exact thing to his team. This is still a team chock full with draftable players to the next level. And for me on defense, it starts with Zane Durant, defensive tackle, and the defensive end, denied Dennis Sutton, as good as they are in the country. Sure. Are they not, playing well as a unit? Yeah, that's the case. But they are still phenomenal players capable of wrecking games and wrecking game plans. And you have to understand that. And you have to go out there with that kind of mindset, right? That you have to be at your absolute best, despite the fact that this team that you're playing has not been at their best. Offensively, you have 2 NFL running backs in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Katron Allen's been getting more and more of the reps. And then you've got start of the season, the talk, amongst NFL scouts was that Penn State is obviously you start 5 offensive linemen. They play as many as 7 offensive linemen, sometimes at the same time, but that there were 7 NFL type offensive linemen on that team. Let that sink in for a minute. They're still there, right? Now, again, have they played up to their absolute potential? Probably not. They wouldn't be in this situation if they had. But the wheels have kind of fallen off the bus there. But again, they can recover this at any time. And I don't want to say flip the switch, but play up to their talent and their potential as a unit, right? And come together and figure out, hey, you know what? We can still make a bowl game. We can still, try to find some positivity at the end of the season. And you better believe that they want to beat a ranked team because they haven't done it, right? So this will be a massive test for Indiana offensively and defensively. Now, look, pass game has not been great. Grunkemeyer comes in to replace the injured Drew Aller, who's out for the season. Aller, again, potential number 1 overall pick in the draft at quarterback. Hadn't been playing that well before he got injured. He gets injured, done for the year. Grunkemeyer, not as talented of a passer, a good runner, a true competitor. The receivers have not shown up as much as I think they were expected to. 3 transfer portal receivers, Kyron Hudson from USC, Devontae Ross from UCF, and Trevor Pena from Syracuse. But again, they've all got it in them. So it's a matter of Indiana trying to figure all that out and make sure that this isn't the game that they get right. And that's the big piece of this whole puzzle for Indiana. Okay. Quickly around the Big Ten, I kind of mentioned it at the top of the show with the CFP. So there are teams here in the Big Ten that, I think everyone is kind of settled in that Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon are going to be in the college football playoff. Right now, depending on how the Big Ten championship game goes, where those seedings are, again, you don't just get the automatic bye this year as a conference champion. So you could still get it as a non-conference champion, which is, I think, the kind of the selling point now for the Big Ten. You got the number 1, number 2 ranked team in the country, and then the number 6 ranked team. But if 1 and 2 play in the Big Ten championship game, you can make the argument both of them are deserving of a bye and of a top 4 spot. I think that's what will ultimately end up happening. So we'll see how that works out. But Michigan is ranked 21 in the country. They're sitting here at 7-2. You then got Iowa at 6-2, USC at 6-2, and Washington at 6-2. So you've got 4 2-loss teams. And then you kind of got, Illinois has fallen off a little bit after the loss to Washington. Minnesota kind of keeps hanging around. They're sitting there at 6-3. They're 4-2 in the conference. But right now, the main contenders for that 4th spot, Michigan, Iowa, USC, and Washington. Now, Iowa and USC play in 2 weeks. Something to keep your eye on, right? Oregon and Iowa play this week. Maybe that's something that'll settle itself out at that point. I think at this point, it'd be tough to get a 3-loss Big Ten team in, just the way things are going. Maybe it happens. But right now, Michigan and Ohio State obviously going to play at the end of the year. And then we'll see what happens with the Big Ten championship game. But there's a lot to kind of sort through here at this point of the season right now. And then Nebraska with that loss to USC, and now Dylan Raiola out for the rest of the year. Going to be tough for them to find their way into the college football playoff. But 4 teams with a shot to make it 4 teams that go to the CFP from the Big Ten. So I think that's a few things we'll be keeping our eye on here this week. Okay, let's check in with the boys. Peter, Nathan, welcome in, friends. What do you guys got? Anything from the game? Anything from the CFP, Big Ten, league-wide? What's on your mind, fellas?
Yeah, I want to look forward to the college football playoff here. As you were just talking about, Indiana stacks up with everybody in the conference. We've dealt with that so far with Oregon. I think we can confidently say everybody in the Big Ten that they're going to play, Indiana can stack up well against. Is there anybody towards the top of those rankings that you think would be an ideal matchup come playoff time that you think Indiana stacks up particularly well against outside of the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, let's look here. If you get the bye, right, then you've got to win 2 games to get to the national title game, right? And I mean, I don't think that there is, I think last year was a year where you're really trying to you're trying to see how the teams are going to lay out, because you really want to make sure, was there a chance you could get SMU? Was there a chance you could get Boise? Obviously Boise ended up winning, the conference over there and being the highest ranked G5 champion. So they got the bye, and then you ended up with Arizona State getting the bye as well. That kind of situation isn't going to happen this year. So I'm really curious. I don't look up and down right now and say oh boy, Indiana needs to play this team. And how cool is that? I think they match up with anybody, absolutely anybody. There is no team out here. I mean, look, sure. If you're looking at the AP top 25, you've got 3 teams after the Big Ten, 1-2. You've got 3 teams from the SEC, A&M, Alabama, and Georgia. All would be very difficult games to win, right? But all games that are winnable. Yeah. Again, let that sink in for a minute, because it's true, right? And just the way that this team plays as a team better than anybody in the country. And to me, that trumps, the fact that Ohio State's got the best offensive and defensive players in the country, and Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. That's great. And they're playing really good, right? They're getting better too. Julian Sain's getting better. And their defense is on par with Indiana's, right? They're really good and really difficult to deal with. Obviously already beaten Oregon. I think Ole Miss is a kind of a tricky matchup. It's a tough offense to game plan for. They use a lot of tempo. But man, I'm just looking up and down here. You go all the way to 12. You got Virginia, Oklahoma, BYU, Texas Tech. Line them up. Anybody, any place, anytime, anywhere. Like that's what I would be feeling like if I was Curt Cignetti at this point, based off how my team is playing.
I want to go to the IU defense. So heading into Saturday against Maryland, they hadn't let up a touchdown in the second half. So obviously we saw a third quarter.
Yeah.
We've given up 19 points through 6 games of Big Ten play.
What is that, like 7 touchdowns total too? Like for the season?
Yeah. So it's 19 points through Big Ten play in the second half and only 6 of that in the fourth quarter. Obviously we hear Cignetti week in, week out say every play matters, every game matters. But also, how impressive is it that the guys themselves are executing? At
such a great question.
Yeah.
Such a great question. And how about the fact that they had to do it, this time with some real depth playing, right? We already know Kellen Wyatt's down and out for the season, as the availability report told us going into the Maryland game. And then, Aiden Fisher goes down. There's not a loss that's bigger on this team outside of losing Fernando Mendoza than Aiden Fisher. And like I said, Kaiden Turner, Utzinger, Roe Hardy, Bones Jones, like all those guys raise their level of play to compensate for that loss. That's just great team football. That's great development. That's great team defense. And I feel like, man, in the second half, this team like flips the thing around and they're like, you know what? Enough. No more points, right? It's almost like that. It's like that scene. I don't know if you guys, if you've ever seen Remember the Titans, but that one scene in the playoffs, the guy's like, you don't let them gain another yard. And that's basically the way they play.
Every week.
And they've got great response mechanisms too, to early adversity, right? Remember ODU, right? First play of the game, they come back and shut that thing down for most of the rest of the game until the last play. Right. So I think that they are built. They're built for the second half, right? They're built to get off the field and to give the offense extra possessions with these takeaways. By the way, remember the turnover margin?
Yeah.
Maryland was like the best. They'd only
number one coming in.
Yeah. Number one
total turnovers on the year.
Yeah.
What was it 4, right?
5.
5, yeah. 5.
Yeah, and I'm saying coming in, and then Indiana gets 5 in the game.
Yeah.
So give us your best, right? And then understand that Indiana is going to bring their best as well, and it shows up constantly. So great points by both of you guys. Look forward to seeing those rankings coming out on Tuesday, and then of course looking forward to seeing the Hoosiers in Happy Valley to battle Penn State coming up, and then we'll of course be back with you for another episode of the Big Red Carpet following that game. Indiana has a chance to go 10-0 now for the second straight year. So for Peter, for Nathan, for Galen, and all of us here at the Back Home Network and here, we appreciate you joining us and interacting with us on the Big Red Carpet, wherever you're getting it, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're getting your podcast, any format, especially on YouTube. I am in those comments. You guys are, want to have a conversation. That's the place to do it. Certainly reach out to me on social media, but love interacting, love seeing you guys interacting with the show. Give us a rating, give us a subscription. We'll be able to do more for you once we get more of that interaction out there. So we appreciate it. We appreciate you guys really for making this thing work. You're the reason we do it, and we appreciate you giving us that support. So let's get out there. Let's see what these Hoosiers can do down in Happy Valley, and I look forward to being back with you guys next week. Have a great one.